32. यावानहं यथा भावो यद्रूप गुणकर्मकः तथैव तत्त्वविज्ञानम् अस्तुते मदनुग्रहात्. All of me, namely my actual inner form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. All of me in my eternal form, um, including my existence, my various forms, colors, qualities, and activities. Let all of them be actually realized by you, by my causeless mercy. ननु त्वद्दर्शनेऽपि असमर्थः अहं कथं ज्ञानाधिकारी स्याम् यावान् इति. If he's anticipating a question here, if I am not even qualified to see you, how can I be eligible to receive transcendental knowledge? And the answer is given here. यानि रूपाणि गुणाः कर्माणि च तत्र साध्ययोः विज्ञानरहस्ययोः आविर्भावार्थम् आशिषं ददाति. Here in this verse, in order to bring about a realization of Vijnana and Rahasya, we saw this specific realization, and the Rahasya is nothing but love of God. So in order to bring about Lord Brahma's realization of that, he first of all gives his blessing in the form of the current verse. As I am, according to my existence and my identifying characteristics, you will be able to realize all of them, including my forms that are part of my personality. Forms such as the black form, the four-armed form, and so on. Qualities such as Bhakti-vaibhava. My activities, the respective pastimes of these forms. So in every manner, may you realize them, which means may you have a factual realization of all of this by my mercy. Etena चतुश्लोकी अर्थस्य निर्विशेषत्वं स्वयमेव परास्तम्. This verse refutes the idea that the four key verses of Srimad Bhagavatam promote something impersonal. Vakshiyate cha chatushlokimev uddishata Sri Bhagavata swayam uddhavam prati. The Supreme Lord Sri Bhagavan himself will tell Uddhava while talking about this very Chatushloki. Puramaya ityado jnanam param man mahimavabhasam. Previously in the past, previously, I spoke the knowledge of Bhagavata to Brahma, who was seated on the lotus, universal lotus. And at that time, I presented to him that supreme knowledge, that transcendental knowledge, that brings about my glory. तत्र विज्ञानपदेन रूपादीनामपि स्वरूपभूतत्वं व्यक्तम्. Since you will realize me, tattva vijnanam, you'll realize me. This implies that his forms, qualities, and activities are actually part of the Supreme Lord's very nature. Atra Vijnana Ashishi Spashta. The blessing that he is giving for realization is very clear. Rahasya Ashishcha Paramanandatmaka Tattad Yatharthya Anubhavena Avashyam Prema Udayat. And the confidential and the blessing for realization of the confidential truth is because when one attains love for the Supreme Lord, then certainly he will attain factual realization of the supremely blissful Lord.
Oh, Sachidural Chaitanya Bro is waiting to join.
But I added him. Who is this? He's Samay Ranjan.
I think
Krishna Chakrati Thakur. किंच ज्ञानम शब्द द्वारा याथार्थ निर्धारणम परोक्षम तच्च किंचित शुद्ध चित्तानाम. Well, something is wrong. My computer is complaining, saying I've opened too many programs. What program did I? I only opened one PDF. Okay, but I got an idea. I should close off certain things. ज्ञानम शब्द द्वारा याथार्थ निर्धारण परोक्षम तच्च किंचित शुद्ध चित्तानाम आस्तिकानाम संभवेदपि. Now there are two things here. One is jnana and the other is vijnana. Jnana is just theoretical knowledge, and we are talking of accurate theoretical knowledge. That it is possible for that to arise in pure-hearted persons who just accept Vedic authority. Vijnanam tu parokshanubhava, but vijnana or realized knowledge is something else. It is matswarupasya yatharthyena sakshatkara. It is factual, unmediated experience of the Supreme Lord's nature. Such a rahasya tadanga shabdabhyam mat prema bhakti sadhana bhakti bhyam vina naiva bhavati. And that does not come about unless one engages in sadhana bhakti and attains prema bhakti for Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna meaning Bhagavan, Krishna and his Vishnu Tattva expansions. Iti bodhayan, while expressing this, tadartham ashisham tadati. He blesses Brahma. Yavan yat pramana akaraha. You will realize me to the extent that I am, which means you will realize me according to all of the different forms of different measurements. Yadrisha sthaulya karshya dairghya tungata vrittata adi auchitya sannivesha vishishta avayava ityarthaha. There are different forms which are of different measurements, different sizes. Some are stout, some are thin, some are long, some are tall, and so on. So, with all of those particularities, you will realize them. Yatha bhavaha, yadrisha vipraya, corresponding to the particular intentions of the particular forms, you will also be able to realize that. यानि रूपाणि श्यामत्व चतुर्भुजत्व कृष्णत्व रामत्व नृसिंहत्व आदीनि गुणाः भक्त वात्सल्य आद्याः कर्माणि लक्ष्मी परिग्रह गोवर्धन उद्धरण आदीनि यस्य सः, you will be able to perceive my different forms, the black bluish form, the four-handed form, the form of Krishna, the form of Rama, the form of Nrsimha, and so on. You'll be able to factually realize qualities such as Bhaktavatsalya. You'll be able to perceive activities such as my marriage of Lakshmi, my lifting Govardhan hill, and so on. This is what is expressed here. तथैवेति येन येन प्रकारेण मम परिमाण अभिप्राय रूप गुण कर्माण्याविर्भवन्ति तेनैव प्रकारेण तत्त्वविज्ञानं तेषां याथार्थ्य अनुभवः अस्ति. And may you have factual realization exactly according to all of these features. तत्र आशीर्वादेन एव अनुग्रहे व्यञ्जिते अपि, so that the Lord's blessings are revealed in this manner. But despite that, पुनर्मत अनुग्रह पद उपदानम पद उपदानम परमांतरंग मत कृपा शक्ति वृत्ति विशेष साधना भक्ति प्रेम भक्ति और वृद्धि तारतम्येनैव तद् रूप गुणादि माधुर्यानुभव तारतम्ये समुत्पत्स्यमानेऽपि एतस्मादपि यत् स्वरूपात् अधिकतम माधुर्यं परम दुर्लभं कृष्ण स्वरूपं मां व्रजभूमौ त्वं साक्षात् अनुभविष्यसि इति सूचयति. So even though it is a fact that corresponding to the increase of sadhana bhakti and prema bhakti, which are manifestations of the Supreme Lord's supreme internal potencies, extension in the form of the potency of kripa. So corresponding to that gradation, one experiences the sweetness of the Supreme Lord's transcendental forms, qualities, and so on. Despite that, a blessing is given here that you will directly be able to experience me in my original form of Krishna in Vrajabhumi, which brings about supreme sweetness. And that form is most difficult to attain. So you will be able to experience this. This is indicated here. In other words, he's blessing him that Brahma will be able to see Krishna in his Vrindavan pastimes. Edena Chatushlokya Nirvishesha Swarupa Matra Paratvena Anya Vyakhyanam Swayameva Parastam. So this is a natural refutation of the idea that the Chatushloki conveys nothing but an impersonal absolute. The secret of success in understanding the intricacies of knowledge of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is the causeless mercy of the Lord. Even in the material world, the father of many sons discloses the secret of his position to the pet sons. The father discloses the confidence unto the son whom he thinks worthy. An important man in the social order can be known by his mercy only. Similarly, one must be very dear to the Lord in order to know the Lord. The Lord is unlimited. No one can know him completely. But one's advancement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord can make one eligible to know the Lord. Here we can see that the Lord is sufficiently pleased with Brahmaji, and therefore he offers his causeless mercy to him, so that Brahmaji may have the factual realization of the Lord by his mercy only. In the Vedas also, it is said that a person cannot know the absolute truth personality of Godhead simply by dint of mundane education or intellectual gymnastics. One can know the supreme truth if one has unflinching faith in the bona fide spiritual master as well as in the Lord. Such a faithful person, even though illiterate in the mundane sense, can know the Lord automatically by the mercy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also, it is said that the Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone. He keeps himself concealed from the faithless by his Yogamaya potency. Aham prakasha sarvasya Yogamaya samavrita. To the faithful, the Lord reveals himself in his form, qualities, and pastimes. The Lord is not formless, as wrongly conceived by the impersonalist, but his form is not like one that we have experienced. The Lord discloses his form, even to the extent of measurement, to his pure devotees. And that is the meaning of Yavan, as explained by Srila Jiva Goswami, the greatest scholar of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord discloses the transcendental nature of his existence. The mundane wranglers make mundane conceptions of the form of the Lord. It is said in the revealed scriptures that the Lord has no mundane form. Therefore, persons with the poor fund of knowledge conclude that he must be formless. They cannot distinguish between mundane form and spiritual form. According to them, without a mundane form, one must be formless. This conclusion is also mundane because formlessness is the opposite conception of form. Negation of the mundane conception does not establish a transcendental fact. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord has a transcendental form and that he can utilize any one of his senses for any purpose. For example, he can eat with his eyes, he can see with his leg. In the mundane conception of form, one cannot eat with one's eyes or see with one's leg. That is the difference between a mundane body and a spiritual body of Satchidananda. A spiritual body is not formless. It is a different type of body of which we cannot conceive with our present mundane senses. Formless, therefore, means devoid of mundane form or possessing a spiritual body of which the non-devotee can have no conception by the speculative method. The Lord discloses to the devotee his unlimited varieties of transcendental bodies, all equal with one another, but with different kinds of bodily features. Some of the transcendental bodies of the Lord are blackish, and some of them are whitish, some of them are reddish, and some are yellowish. This is Yugavatar forms. Some of them are four-handed, and some of them are two-handed. Some of them are like a fish, and some are like a lion. All these different transcendental bodies of the Lord without any differential category means that they're all substantially equal to each other, are disclosed to the devotees of the Lord by the mercy of the Lord, and thus the impersonalists' false arguments claiming the formlessness of the supreme truth do not appeal to a devotee of the Lord, even though such a devotee may not be very advanced in devotional service. The Lord has unlimited numbers of transcendental qualities, and one of them is his affection for his unalloyed devotee. In the history of the mundane world, we can appreciate his transcendental qualities. The Lord incarnates himself for the protection of his devotees and for the annihilation of the faithless. His activities are in relationship with his devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of such activities of the Lord in relationship with his devotees, and the non-devotees have no knowledge of such pastimes. The Lord lifted the Govardhan hill when he was only 7 years old and protected his pure devotees at Vrindavan from the wrath of Indra, who was overflooding the place with the rain. Now, this lifting of the Govardhan hill by a 7-year-old boy may be unbelievable for the faithless, but for the devotees, it's absolutely believable. The devotee believes in the almighty potency of the Lord, while the faithless say that the Lord is almighty but do not believe it. Such men with a poor fund of knowledge do not know that the Lord is the Lord eternally, and that one cannot become the Lord by meditation for millions of years or by mental speculation for billions of years. The impersonal interpretation of the mundane wranglers, argumentators, is completely refuted in this verse, because it is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord has his qualities, form, pastimes, and everything else that a person has. All these descriptions of the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead are factual realizations by the devotee of the Lord, and by the causeless mercy of the Lord, they are revealed to his pure devotee and to no one else. 633. Aham evasam evagre nanyad yad sad sat param paschadaham yadetacha yovashishyeta sosmyaham. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead. And after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Yet sadasat param. Madhvacharya has just noted that there is nothing which is independent of him. And he quotes from Brahmatarka. Etadev samyak upadishan yavaniti yasyartham sputayati. So now the Lord explains clearly the meaning of the previous verse. Aham eva agre drishteh purvam asam stitaha. It is I who was present before creation. Nanyat kinchat, nothing else. Yat sat stulam asat sukshmam param tayor karanam pradhanam. Nothing else. Nothing gross, nothing subtle, and nothing which was the cause of the gross and subtle, which is pradhana. Tasyapi antarmukhataya tada mayyeva linatvat, because that also was merged into me. Aham cha tada asameva, kevalam na cha anyada karavam. Even at that time I was existing. Just that I did not create. Paschat srishtir anantaramapi. After creation also, aham eva asmi. It is I who exist. Yadetad vishvam tadapi aham asmi. This world that you see, that is also me. Pralaye vyavashishyeta sopi ahameva. That which will remain at the time of dissolution, that is also me. Anena cha anadi anantatva advitiyatva cha paripurnaha aham iti uktam bhavati. So the point that is made here is that because I am beginningless and endless, and I have no rival, or I have no one who is equal to me as a second, I am perfect. Tadeva Upadeshya Chatuштayam Chatushlokyā Nirupayan Prathamam Jnana Vijnanartham Swalakshanam Pratipadayati Dvapya. So there are 4 points of instruction in Chatushlokam. So first of all, he presents the object of theoretical and realized knowledge by identifying himself, by presenting identifying characteristics about himself. He does this in 2 verses. So the object of jnana is now stated here. Aham evasam, the current verse. Atra aham shabdena tad vakta murta eva uchyate. The word aham here refers to the speaker, who is a person, who has a form. Natu nirvishesham brahma tad avishayatva. Not the impersonal Brahman, because that is not the subject matter of discussion at all. Atma Jnana Tatparya ke hetu Tattvamasi itivad Tvameva asireva vaktum ubhetvat. Because he could have said, you alone existed. He did not say. If everybody is all one, then he could have said, you alone existed. I alone exist. Tataschayamartha. So this is the meaning. Samprati bhavantam prati pradurбhavan asau paramanoharshi vigrahoham eva agre mahapralaya kale api asameva. Right now, in front of you, here I am with my supremely enchanting sacred form. In this very form, I existed even at the time of the great dissolution. Because the Shruti says that Vasudevo va idamagra asid na Brahma na cha Shankaraha eko Narayana asid na Brahma na Ishanaha. At the initial point, Vasudeva alone existed. Brahma did not exist. Shankara did not exist. Lord Narayana alone existed, not Brahma, not Ishana. Ishana is Lord Shiva. Bhagavan eka asedam agra atmatmanam vibhuhu ityadi tritiyat. Third canto also says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan alone existed. And he is the all-pervading soul of all the souls. Notice this. Anyway, we'll come to it in the third canto. Ato Vaikuntha tat parshada adinam api tat upangatvat aham padenaiva grahanam rajaso prayati iti vat. If there is an announcement that a king is now going in this road, it is obvious that the king is not going alone. He is going with his associates. So like that, when Lord Krishna says, I alone existed, that includes all of his retinue, it includes his Vaikuntha worlds, it includes the residents who reside there and so on, because they're all part and parcel of him. They're all with him. Just as when we say a king goes, just like we were told that on America's Independence Day, there's a great procession in Washington, D.C. And we were told that ISKCON Washington's Rath Yatra also happens at that time. And we were also told, and the President of America gets to see it. Now, when you say the President of America gets to see it, it's not just the President. The President with all of his retinue, so many people, they all get to see it. So, like that, when Krishna says, I alone existed, it's not alone, it doesn't mean Krishna alone. It's Krishna with all of his associates, his abodes, everything together. Tataha, tesham se tadvat eva sthitir bodhyate. So, it is also understood that the abodes of the Lord, the associates of the Lord, their existence is also like his existence. The king had asked in 2.8.10, and Vidura had also asked when the Supreme Lord goes to sleep, that means at the time of annihilation, who worships him? The very question implies that there are some souls who exist at the time of annihilation and who are worshipping him. Kashi Khandepi Uktam Sri Dhruva Charite. In Kashi Khanda also, in Sri Dhruva Charita, it is stated, Nachavante hi madbhakta bhatyam pralayapadi atochito khile loke sa ekas sarvago vyaya. My devotees, they do not fall down even at the time of the crisis of the great dissolution. Therefore, Achyuta alone is all-pervading, is inexhaustible in this entire world. Ahameva iti evakarena kartra antarasya arupatvadikasya cha vyavritihi. Eva, I alone, Eva has a sense of certainly, but Eva also has a sense of only. So I alone indicates that there was nobody else who did not have forms and so on. Asameva iti tatra asambhavanaya nivritti. It is not impossible. Therefore, it was stated yat rupa guna karma kaha in the previous verse. Another meaning. आसमेवेति ब्रह्मादि बहिर्जन ज्ञान गोचर सृष्ट्यादि लक्षण क्रियांतरस्यैव व्यावृत्तिः न तु स्वांतरंग लीलायापि. When he says I alone existed, all it means is he did not engage in any activity characterized by creation, maintenance, annihilation that are within the scope of the external knowledge of Brahma and other demigods and so on. It does not mean that he did not engage in his own internal pastimes. Yatha adhuna aso raja karyam na kinchit karoti iti ukte. So just as if you were to say that now the king is not carrying out his official duties. Rajya sambandhi karyam eva nishiddhyate. It is only denied that he is engaging in official activities pertaining to governance. Na to shayana bhojanadikam api iti tadvat. It doesn't indicate that he is not engaging in activities of sleeping, eating, and so on. Even now, in corrupt India, you go to some government office and then people tell you, no, 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 the officer is not doing anything. Uh, it's, he's busy, he's not doing anything. Or many times they simply say, I'm doing nothing. Now, if you say something like, I'm doing nothing, it doesn't literally mean do nothing. It is doing things which are not, or like, for instance, when the students don't do homework, the teachers, they chastise the student. Why didn't you do anything? Now, the teacher doesn't certainly mean that the students didn't do anything literally. It simply means didn't do anything pertaining to the homework. Like that. Yadva. Another meaning. Asagati diptyadana adaneshu iti asmat आसम सांप्रतम भवता दृश्यमाने विशेषे रेभिर अग्रेपि विराजमान एव अतिष्ठम इति निराकारत्व आदिकस्यैव विशेषत व्यापृति. The very fact that he says that I existed, I was there, indicates that it is not that he was initially formless and then later he assumed a form. तदुक्तम अनेन श्लोकेन साकार निराकार विष्णु लक्षण कारिण्याम मुक्तफल टीकायामपि. This is like, agreed upon even in the commentary on Mukta Phala. Now, the commentator of Mukta Phala is not known to be a transcendental Vaishnava. Even they accept it. It is also found in the Shruti. Aitareka Shrutischa Atma Vedam Agra Asit Purusha Vidaha iti. Etena Prakriti Ikshanataha api Prag Bhava Purushat api Uttamatvena Bhagavad Jnanam eva Katitham. The Supreme Soul was present before creation. This indicates that there is a Bhagavan who is superior even to the Purusha before that Purusha glances on Prakriti. Nano vachit nirvisheshameva brahma asit iti shruyate. But sometimes we hear about an impersonal Brahman alone that exists. Tatraha nanyad yat sad sat param. Sat refers to effect. Asat refers to cause. Ayoh param. Yad Brahma. And Brahman which is beyond the cause and effect. Tanna matahanya, that is not different from me. Vachid adhikarini shastre va स्वरूपभूत विशेष व्युत्पत्ति असमर्थे सह अयम अहमेव निर्विशेषतया प्रतिभाति इति अर्थः. In certain scriptures meant for certain persons who have certain eligibilities, who don't have the capacity to perceive my internal variety, I myself reveal myself in an impersonal manner. यदा तदानीं प्रपंचे विशेष अभावान् निर्विशेष चिन्मात्र आकारेण वैकुंठे तु not वैकुंठे वैकुंठे सविशेष भगवद रूपेण इति शास्त्रद्वय व्यवस्था. So in that way, Lord has made arrangement for certain scriptures which reveal his spiritual variety in Vaikuntha, and certain scriptures which talk about the Lord's revelation of impersonal spiritual existence alone in this world. एतेन च ब्रह्मणो हि प्रतिष्ठाहम् इत्यत्रोक्तं भगवद्ज्ञानमेव प्रतिपादितम्. From this we understand that Brahmano hi pratishtaham refers to knowledge of Bhagavan. Ateva asya paramaguhyatvam uktam. Therefore, it is said that knowledge of Bhagavan is supremely confidential. Nanu srishter anantaram na upalabhyase traha paschat srishter anantaram api ahameva asmi eva vaikuntheshu. Are you not realized after creation? Anticipating that question, the Lord says, after creation also, I am the one who exists. I am the one who exists in Vaikuntha, in the forms of Bhagavan and so on. In this prapancha, in material existence, in the form of Antaryami, in the form of Paramatma. Etena srishtisthiti pralaya hetura heturasya ityadi pratipaditam bhagavad-jnanam upadishtam. And this directly matches with knowledge of Bhagavan as stated in 11.3.35. That at that time, the question will be asked, can you please define Bhagavan? And at that time, this will be stated, 11.3.35, which will say that there is one Narayana who is the cause of the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this visible universe, and who himself has no cause. And in that way, it's a beautiful verse which describes different features of the Absolute. So Srila Jiva Goswami is matching this with that. ननु सर्वत्र घटपट आकाराः ये दृश्यन्ते ते तु तद् रूपाणि न भवन्ति इति तव अपूर्णत्व प्रसक्तिः स्यात् इति आशङ्क्याः. यदेतद् विश्वं तदपि अहमेव मत् अनन्यत्वात् मदात्मकमेवेति अर्थः. We see so many material objects here. They are not those forms that you're talking about. So you are incomplete. Is that so? Anticipating this, the Supreme Lord says, this world that is here, I am this world itself. I am this world also. Because it is not distinct from me. I am the soul of this world. Anena soyam te vihitasthata bhagavan vishwabhavana samasena harirnanya danyaspat saddasaccha yad ityadyuktam bhagavad jnanam eva upanishtam. This is also knowledge of Bhagavan, which matches with the teaching presented in, I think this is in Narad. I don't remember it's Narad Muni or is it Brahma? Who is this? What is this verse? We came across this. We definitely came across this. Yes, yes, yes. Democrats. My dear son, I have now explained in brief the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the creator of the manifested worlds. Without him, Hari, the Lord, there are no other causes of the phenomenal and numinous existences. There's nothing other than Lord Hari. There's nothing other than Lord Hari. And notice this, it's Bhagavan. So this teaching pertaining to Bhagavan, and that also comes up here in our Chatushloki, third line. Paschadaham yadetacha. तथा ओके तथा प्रलये यो विशिष्येत सोऽहम् एव अस्मि एव एतेन भवान् एक शिष्यते शेषसंज्ञ इत्युक्तं भगवद्ज्ञानमेव उपदिष्टम्. The one who remains at the time of annihilation is also me. That is what the Lord is saying. And this matches with the teaching of Bhagavan, the teaching of knowledge of Bhagavan, as stated in this verse. Bhagavan eka shishyate shesha sangya. Because you remain alone, therefore you are called Shesha. Shesha means that which remains, or he who remains. नष्टे लोके द्विपरार्थावसाने महाभूतेष्वादिभूतं गतेषु व्यक्ते व्यक्तं कालवेगेन याते भवानेक शिष्यते शेष संज्ञा. After millions of years, at the time of cosmic annihilation, when everything manifested and unmanifested is annihilated by the force of time, the five gross elements enter into the subtle conception and the manifested categories enter into the unmanifested substance. At that time, you alone remain. You are known as Ananta Sheshanaga. Your lordship alone remains, named Shesha. Shishyate is connected with the word Shesha. Shishyate means he who remains, and Shesha means he who remains. This is also knowledge of Bhagavan. Because they're talking, these are demigods talking to Bhagavan. They're directly addressing him. तथा पूर्वं स्व अनुग्रह प्रकाश्यत्वेन प्रतिज्ञातं यावत् त्वं सर्वकालदेश अपरिच्छेद्यत्व ज्ञापनाय उपदिष्टम् एवं नान्यद् यत् सदसत् परम् इत्यनेन. Okay. So in that way, each of the four parts of this verse, they refer to particular features of what the Supreme Lord has promised in the previous verse. Shnad Chakravarti Thakur. एवं श्लोकाभ्याम देयत्वेन ज्ञानादिकं प्रतिश्रुत्य. In the previous two verses, the Supreme Lord had made a promise that he would give knowledge, realization, and so on. Tat praptau ashishya eva yogitam apadya cha. And then he also blessed Lord Brahma with the ability to receive them, with the eligibility to receive them. प्रथमं ज्ञानम् उपदिशन्नेव परावरे यथा रूपे जानीयाम इति प्रश्नस्य उत्तरमाह. While answering that, he answers the question that was posed in 2.9.25. Aham evagre srishte purvamasam iti tarjanyasva vakshasprishati. The Supreme Lord touches his heart with his finger and with his pointing finger. He says, it is me, I, who existed before creation. Evakarena anya yoga vivachedakya ena mad vijatiyam prakritam vastu kimapi nasiditi labhyate. And when he says, I alone, I alone, only I existed, It is understood that there is no one else or nothing else which is categorically distinct from him. That means there's no material entity that existed at that time. I am Artha. This is the meaning. The other is right from Jiva Goswami. Here's some more examples to clarify. When the Supreme Lord says that um, I was existing, I was only existing in the past. I did not do anything. Um, I did not do anything doesn't mean that he literally did not do anything. पूर्वस्मिन् वर्षे तत्र ग्रामे चैत्र आसीदेव इति उक्ते चैत्रस्य शयनासनभोजनादिक्रिया नैव व्यावर्तन्ते किन्तु अभावे एव इति. If you were to say that in the previous monsoon season, in that specific village, Chaitra was certainly there. This does not deny that Chaitra did not go to sleep, he did not sit down, he did not eat, and so on. It is simply stating that his non-existence is denied. ननु सृष्टेरनन्तरं जगदेव न तु त्वम् उपलभ्यसे. Anticipated objection. After creation, there is only this manifested universe, not you, who is cognized. In response, he says, Pashat Srishter Anantaramapi Aham Eva Asmi Eva. It is I alone who exist after creation. वैकुंठेषु भगवदाद्य आकारेण प्रपंचेषु अंतर्यामी रूपेण यथा समयं मत्स्यादि अवतार रूपेण च. This simply means that the Supreme Lord certainly exists in Vaikuntha, in the forms of Bhagavan and so on, in material existence in the form of Antaryami, Paramatma, and at appropriate times in the forms of different incarnations such as Matsya. ननु तर्हि पृथिव्यादिकं देवत्रियादिकं च त्वं न भवसि. Another anticipated objection. So you are not the elements headed by earth. You are not the living species headed by the demigods, the animals, and so on. In other words, you are incomplete. Is it not? तत्रह यदेतच्च व्यष्टि समष्टि विरान्मयं विश्वं तदपि अहमेव. Whatever is here, collectively, individually, in the form of the universal form, this entire universe, that is me. Mat Shakti Janyatvan Mamaiva Prakritam Rupam. It is born from my energy, therefore it is my material form. Understand that when you ask me about spiritual and material forms, this is the material form that you had asked about. तथा योग शिष्येत भवान एक शिष्यते शेष संगी इत्यादि युक्त परमेश्वर सोहम अस्मि. And the one who remains, known as Shesha, that Supreme Lord, that is also me. तत्र अहम इति अस्य त्रिरावृत्या निर्धारणस्य सूचितत्वात् एतद् रूप गुणादि विशिष्टस्य मम वैकालिक नित्यस्थित्या पररूपत्वं सृष्टि संहारयोर्मध्ये एव दृश्यम् इदं मायिक प्रपंच जातम् अवरं रूपम् इति परावर रूपयोर्ज्ञानम् उक्तम्. Now, two different forms of knowledge has been presented. Knowledge of the spiritual form that Brahma had asked about. That is known from the forms, qualities, and so on that characterize the one who has mentioned Aham thrice. In other words, that form of that Supreme Lord, which is eternally existing in the three phases of time, past, present, and future, that is the spiritual form. And then in between creation and annihilation, there is this inferior form of the Lord, which is the Maic prapancha, material existence, material world. So in this way, he is presenting knowledge of the superior and the inferior. Vijnanam tu pararupasya, what is this? Prathamasa. Prathamasa. तदैव स्यात् यदा श्रवणकीर्तनादिजन्य प्रेमभक्त्या तद्रूप गुणादि माधुर्यम् आस्वाद्यमानं स्यात् इति चतुर्थ श्लोके व्यक्तं भावि. The transcendental form will be realized only when one attains prema bhakti through shravanam, kirtanam, and so on. When one is relishing the sweetness of the Lord's forms, qualities, and so on. This will be revealed in the fourth verse. We should note very carefully that the personality of Godhead is addressing Lord Brahma and specifying with great emphasis himself, pointing out that it is he, the personality of Godhead, who existed before the creation. It is he only who maintains the creation, and it is he only who remains after the annihilation of the creation. Brahma is also a creation of the Supreme Lord. The impersonalist puts forth the theory of oneness in the sense that Brahma, also being the same principle of I, because he is an emanation from the I, the absolute truth, is identical with the Lord, the principle of I, and that there is thus nothing more than the principle of I, as explained in this verse. Even if we accept the argument of the impersonal, it is to be admitted that the Lord is the creator I, and that Brahma is the created I. Therefore, there's a difference between the two I's, namely the predominator I and the predominated I. Therefore, there are still two I's, even if we accept the argument of the impersonalist. But we must note carefully that in the Vedic literature, these two I's are accepted as one only in the sense of quality. The Kathopanishad says, Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam eko bahunam yo vidadhati kama. The creator I and the created I are accepted in the Vedas as qualitatively one because both of them are nityas and chetanas. But the singular I is the creator I, and the created I's are of plural number because there are many I's like Brahma and those generated by Brahma. It is a simple truth. The father creates or begets a son, and the son also creates many other sons. And all of them may be one as human beings, but at the same time, the father, the son, and the grandsons are all different. The son cannot take the place of the father, nor can the grandsons. Simultaneously, the father, the son, and the grandson are one and different also. As human beings, they are one, but as relativities, they are different. Therefore, the relativities of the creator and the created, or the predominator and the predominated, have been differentiated in the Vedas by saying that the predominator I is the feeder of the predominated I's. And thus, there is a vast difference between the two principles of I. In another feature of this verse, no one can deny the personalities of both the Lord and Brahma. Therefore, in the ultimate issue, both the predominator and predominated are persons. This conclusion refutes the conclusion of the impersonalist that in the ultimate issue, everything is impersonal. This impersonal feature, stressed by the less intelligent impersonalist school, is refuted by pointing out that the predominator I is the absolute truth and that he is a person. The predominated I, Brahma, is also a person, but he is not the absolute. For realization of one's self in spiritual psychology, it may be convenient to assume oneself to be the same principle as the absolute truth, but there is always the difference of the predominated and the predominator, as clearly pointed out here in this verse, which is grossly misused by the impersonalists. Brahma is factually seeing face to face his predominator Lord, who exists in his transcendental eternal form, even after the annihilation of the material creation. The form of the Lord, as seen by Brahma, existed before the creation of Brahma. And the material manifestation, with all the ingredients and agents of material creation, is an expansion of the Lord's energies. And after the exhibition of the Lord's energies come to a close, what remains is the same personality of Godhead. Therefore, the form of the Lord exists in all circumstances of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. The Vedic hymns confirm this fact in the statements Vasudevo va idamagra asin na brahma na shankara eko vai narayana asin na brahma na ishana, etc. Before the creation, there was none except Vasudeva. There was neither Brahma nor Shankara. Only Narayana was there and no one else, neither Brahma nor Ishana. Sripad Shankaracharya also confirms this in his comments on the Bhagavad Gita that Narayana, or the personality of Godhead, is transcendental to all creation, but that the whole creation is a product of Avyakta, the unmanifest. Therefore, the difference between the created and the creator is always there, although both the creator and created are of the same quality. Another feature of this verse is the statement that the supreme truth is Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead and his kingdom have already been explained. The kingdom of Godhead is not void as conceived by the impersonalists. The Vaikuntha planets are full of transcendental variegatedness, including the four-handed residents of those planets with great opulence of wealth and prosperity. And there are even airplanes and other amenities required for high-grade personalities. Therefore, the personality of Godhead exists before the creation. He exists with all transcendental variegatedness in the Vaikuntha Lokas. The Vaikuntha Lokas also accepted in the Bhagavad Gita as being of the Sanatana nature, are not annihilated even after the annihilation of the manifested cosmos. Those transcendental planets are of a different nature altogether, and that nature is not subjected to the rules and regulations of material creation, maintenance, or annihilation. The existence of the personality of God, it implies the existence of the Vaikuntha Lokas, as the existence of a king implies the existence of a kingdom. In various places in Srimad Bhagavatam and in other revealed scriptures, the existence of the personality of God is mentioned. For example, in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.8.10, Maharaj Parikshitas, Sachapi yatra purusho vishwastityudbhavapyayaha, muktvatma maya mayesha shete sarva duhashayaha. How does the personality of Godhead, the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, who is always freed from the influence of the illusory energy and is the controller of the same, lie in everyone's heart? Similar also is a question of Viduras. Tatvanam bhagavan stesham katitha pratisankrama. Tatremam ka upasiran ka usvit anusherate. In his notes, Sridhar Swami explains that the latter part of this verse, during the period when the creation has been annihilated, who serves the Lord as he lies on Shesha, indicates that the transcendental Lord, with all his names, fame, qualities, and paraphernalia, exists eternally. The same confirmation is also in the Kashi Khanda of the Skanda Purana in connection with Dhruva Charita. It is said that Na chavantepi yad bhakta mahatyam pralayapadi atochito chile loke sa eka sarvago vyaya. Not to speak of the personality of Godhead himself. Even his devotees are not annihilated during the period of the annihilation of the entire material world. The Lord is ever existent in all three stages of material change. The impersonalist adduces no activity in the Supreme. But in this discussion between Brahma and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is said to have activities also, as he has his form and qualities. The activities of Brahma and other demigods during the maintenance of the creation are to be understood as the activities of the Lord. The king or the head executive of a state may not be seen in the government offices, or he may be engaged in royal comforts. Yet it should be understood that everything is being done under his direction and everything is at his command. The personality of Godhead is never formless. In the material world, he may not be visible in his personal form to the less intelligent class of men. Therefore, he may sometimes be called formless. But actually, he is always in his eternal form in his Vaikuntha planets, as well as in other planets of the universe as different incarnations. The example of the sun is very appropriate in this connection. At night, the sun may not be visible to the eyes of men in the darkness, but the sun is visible wherever it has risen. that the sun is not visible to the eyes of the inhabitants of a particular part of the earth does not mean that the sun has no form. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 1.4.1, that is the hymn, Atmai Vedam Agra Asi Purusha Vidhaha. This mantra indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna existed even before the appearance of the Purusha incarnation. In the Bhagavad Gita 15.18, it is said that Lord Krishna is the Purushottama, the Supreme Purusha, because he is transcendental even to the Akshara Purusha and the Kshara Purusha. The Akshara Purusha or the Mahavishnu throws his glance over Prakriti or material nature, but the Purushottama exists even before that. We saw this in Bhakti Shastra Deluxe while going through Vishnu Chakrit Thakur's explanation of the last 5 verses of the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad therefore confirms the statement of the Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Person, Purushottama. In some of the Vedas, it is also said that in the beginning only the impersonal Brahman existed. However, according to the present verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, the impersonal Brahman, which is the glowing effulgence of the body of the Supreme Lord, may be called the immediate cause. But the cause of all causes or the remote cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord's impersonal feature is existent in the material world because by material senses or material eyes, the Lord cannot be seen or perceived. One has to spiritualize the senses before one can expect to see or perceive the Supreme Lord. But he's always engaged in his personal capacity and he's eternally visible to the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka eye to eye. Therefore, he is materially impersonal, just as the executive head of the state may be impersonal in the government offices, although he is not impersonal in the government house. Similarly, the Lord is not impersonal in his abode, which is always nirasta kuhakam, as stated in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam. Therefore, both the impersonal and personal features of the Lord are acceptable, as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. This dual quality of the personality of God is very emphatically stated in the Bhagavad Gita in the verse beginning, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, Bhagavad Gita 14.27. Therefore, in all ways, the confidential part of spiritual knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead and not his impersonal Brahman feature. One should therefore have his ultimate aim of realization not in the impersonal feature, but in the personal feature of the absolute truth. The example of the sky within the pot and the sky outside the pot may be helpful to the student for his realization of the all-pervading quality of the cosmic consciousness of the absolute truth. But that does not mean that the individual part and parcel of the Lord becomes the supreme by a false claim. It means only that the conditioned soul is a victim of the illusory energy in her last snare. To claim to be one with the cosmic consciousness of the Lord is a last trap set by the illusory energy or Daivi Maya. Even in the impersonal existence of the Lord, as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord. And that is the meaning of Paschadaham Yadetacha Yova Shishyeta Sosmyaham. Brahmaji also accepted the same truth when he was instructing Narada. He said, Soyam Tevi Hitastata Bhagavan Vishwa Bhavana. 2.7.50 Srimad Bhagavatam. There is no cause of all causes other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari. Therefore, the verse under discussion beginning, Aham Eva, never indicates anything other than the Supreme Lord, and one should therefore follow the path of the Brahma Sampradaya or the path from Brahmaji to Narada to Vyasa, etc. And make it a point in life to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari or Lord Krishna. This very confidential instruction to the pure devotees of the Lord was also given to Arjuna as well as to Brahma in the beginning of the creation. The demigods like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Indra, Chandra, and Varuna are undoubtedly different forms of the Lord for execution of different functions. And the different elemental ingredients of material creation as well as the multifarious energies are emanations of the same personality of Godhead. But the root of all of them is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. One should be attached to the root of everything rather than bewildered by the branches and leaves. That is the instruction given in this verse. Okay, so we'll stop with that and we'll resume tomorrow. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasintabhyevacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.